What I'd like to do right now is Bill Biddy still has the first response to this last question before we get into closing remarks. And that last question will be presented by the other moderator, Jerry.
As a senator, who do you represent? Congress, the United States on a whole, or the citizens of the state of New Hampshire?
I represent you, the citizens and people of New Hampshire. I think that what I'm about is we've got the 55,000 Granite Staters who are looking for work. All of us have friends and neighbors and loved ones that are looking for work, working part-time, and feel an enormous economic anxiety even if you have a job. That's who I'm here for, all of us, all of the people of this state. I haven't been to Washington and taken any Washington money. I'm not beholden to anybody, and no PAC money is given, and no one is giving me any PAC money. I have no special interest allegiance to anybody. I'm here for you. I feel a profound calling to public service. I want to see in my life's journey of building and creating jobs and businesses, of seeing what it's like, to how companies really create jobs. You want to talk about job creation? I understand it. I've done it my whole life. That's why I'm running. I feel a call to service, and I'd like to serve you, and I'd like your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. There's really very little question, isn't there, that the elected representatives to the United States Senate and the United States Congress represent the people, you the people. That's who I would represent as a United States Senator. And I think we've lost touch with that. We elect people to the Senate and to the House to decide they like the lifestyle in Washington. They go down and move to Washington and become part of the culture, and I would say a culture of corruption. They become buddies with the special interests, the party bosses. I'm not moving to Washington. I'm going to live in Manchester in the same house that I grew up in, where I live now, in the same neighborhood where my grandparents raised their children and their grandchildren were there. I'm going to fly down on Tuesday morning, come back on Thursday night whenever the Senate is in session, and work from home and here in New Hampshire. I do not want to lose sight of the fact that I represent the people of New Hampshire. And I'm going to draw my strength, inspiration, and guidance from you, the people who I would be elected to represent. And I mean that quite sincerely. It's important in this election cycle particularly that we elect people who understand when they go to Washington, it's to reform Washington, not to become part of Washington. Washington is broken. It's broken because of the culture of corruption. And we need to make sure that we have elected representatives who understand the charge. And that's to represent the people and be the people's voice. I want to be your voice while you're my eyes and ears back here in New Hampshire. As I said, I am not the establishment candidate in this race. I have no special interests other than yours. And that's the way it should be. Thank you.
And candidate Ayla.
It starts with we the people, meaning us together. I represent you. And I have to say, in Washington, they have just lost their way. Fundamentally, they're not listening. They have this attitude, we know better than you. I don't know better than you. I want to hear what's important to you and represent you in Washington. And I don't think that anyone in Washington, Congress, should get any special benefits. I will not take a pay raise when I'm in the Senate. You know why? Because we need to get our fiscal house in order, and it should start with our congressmen. I'm not going to accept any special benefits. Members of Congress should not be treated any differently than any of you, and that's wrong. When that comes to the health care debate, the health care reform passed, they should have been the first ones in that plan, whatever it was. No special retirement deals, anything like that, because they've lost sight, and people get there and they feel like, wow, I'm entitled, I'm somehow special or different from you. No, we're one of you. And you know, as Joe and I'm going to continue to live in Nashua, New Hampshire, in the same house also. I look forward to being in the grocery store on weekends and having people stop me as I'm buying a gallon of milk and have them tell me what's on their minds. And I think that's incredibly important. And I will be accountable to you, the people of the state of New Hampshire.
Well, I'm not a politician, and I will never become a career politician. But I'd like to go to Washington to represent you, the people of New Hampshire, and also the people of America. And I can't even imagine a situation where those would ever be in conflict, and I'll never allow myself to be in a situation where those are in conflict. What's inspired me to be before you today is I believe that our country's had many periods where we've had more difficult problems than we've had today. We had the Revolutionary War, we had the Great Depression, the Civil War, both world wars. Certainly more trying times than those we face now. The problems we face today, however, do not have the same quality of leadership that we've come to expect in America, either from a competence standpoint or an integrity standpoint. And we have three major economic issues that are all interrelated to one another. The first is the bloated size of our government. It spends too much, it wastes too much, it taxes too much, it borrows too much, and it's just way too big. By any measure, we don't need a government that's this big. That problem leads to the second problem, which is that our economy is straining under the weight of a gigantic federal government that overtaxes, overregulates, and overlitigates. We've got an 800-pound horse on top of an 800-pound jockey on top of that horse, and you don't get good results when you have that. So if we had smaller government, our economy would take off, and we'd start to see more jobs. And the third issue that is related to the first two is one of trust. We have a culture of corruption in Washington. You know, when the fellow that has oversight over the Treasury Department and the IRS has been caught red-handed not paying his taxes for 10 years, and Mr. Hodes and the rest of his fellow members of the House can't even censure him, let alone throw him out. That's, you know, I used to live in Washington. We had something called the cockroach theory. If you see one cockroach, it means there's 100 cockroaches. And that's what we have in Washington. We've got to have a standard of public servants. We have to have people in Washington who understand the issues, who understand economics, who understand finance and accounting, who understand the history of what's worked and what hasn't worked. I do understand these things. This is what I've been doing my whole life. But I'm not just some businessman that woke up one day and said, gosh darn it, I can fix businesses, I can go fix the government. I've worked in and around Washington since 1978 when I was in graduate school. And I've had a variety of different types of jobs. So they're not going to say to me, you sit in that back row, young man. First of all, because I'm not a young man. And you'll make something of yourself in 10 years. I'm going to know what I'm doing day one. And there are a lot of people in Washington right now, you see them on C-SPAN all the time, that don't know what they're doing.
And Canada time has expired, so.